Ladies and gentlemen, Valorant is a hard game to solo carry. Sometimes you feel like you just can't combo with your teammates, they don't listen to you, they run in and die alone, and there's nothing you can do to win the game. That being said, let's break down the top 5 characters to hard carry your teammates so that you get the best shot at winning every single game in Valorant. Speaking of hard carrying, I need you to hard carry your mouse over to the subscribe button and smash it right now. All that being said, without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now moving on to the 5th most powerful solo carry character in the game, we have Cypher. Now you might at first think that Cypher is just a team-centered character, and yes, he can be very good for a team setting, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have some of the most potent solo carry potential in the entire game. First off, we can't not talk about how his powerful kit can allow you to single-handedly hold off a site. Because of this, you can have multiple guard the same site so that they at least have a better chance at holding it, and you get to set up unfair advantages where you can take trades. A good disciplined Cypher can be a nightmare for the enemy to deal with. Especially on eco rounds, you can close range trap camp enemies and you can easily trade up weapons. Even just using a weapon like a shorty, you can trap an enemy and trade up for a better gun, allowing you to get a kill and potentially go on a lurk flank. Now speaking of lurking, especially when enemies stop pushing your site, because this happens often when you start popping off on Cypher, enemies are just going to stop pushing your site altogether, and you have 2 big options. One, you can mix up where you're playing. You could go to one side to the next, you can go back and forth. Sometimes there's one site that's just better for Cypher, and you want to play that site, but being unpredictable could definitely bring a lot of value. Now, the second thing that you could do that's really underrated is actually lurking with Cypher. Now, lurking is not the same as flanking. What you do with the lurk is you take space behind an enemy, but you don't necessarily engage with them. You want to bring a certain amount of traps with you, so you can set up your traps or set up a trap for enemies that potentially want to rotate off the site and they want to rotate to a new site. You hold that position around them until they either engage or they push back to try to rotate. If they push back to try to rotate, you already set up new traps in their backline so that they will walk right into them because they will not expect you to be lurking there. And if they engage your teammates, you can push on and then actually proceed with the flank. So it gives Cypher that flexibility, and that's what makes him such a powerful lurker. At the same time, he can use his camera to make sure that no other enemies slip through the cracks of information and easily hold down many different plays from the enemy, make huge plays himself. Cypher is definitely one of the best solo carry characters in the entire game. Now moving on to the next solo carry agent that you want to start learning right now, it's Raze. Now Raze's paint shells is one of the best abilities to punish joint pushes, and this happens incredibly often, especially when enemies are on pistol rounds or things like that, where they really want to push in all together and they want to rush you really quickly. Raze can put a stop to this right away. Now you might not be able to get a kill with your paint shells, but at the very least you could put a fair amount of damage on the enemy, and you got to realize just putting a little bit of damage on many different people, especially in pistol round, that can change the numbers for a lot of your guns. It can allow you to really easily take advantage fights and can really add up to a lot of hard carry moments. Now, of course, we got to talk about her blast packs, which yes, can be used to check angles. It did recently get nerfed, but it's still pretty powerful. But the #1 way to use this ability is to use it to take duels. Throw it out in the middle of the open, aggressively peek that angle, and if there's an enemy there, you could try to duel them, and at any moment, you can choose to detonate your actual blast pack, detonating you back behind natural cover. This gives you that jiggle peek flexibility and almost does a mock tailwind impression, but you get 2 of them, which is even better. Now, next up, we gotta talk about her Roomba, which is one of the most powerful abilities of actually securing 1v1s, and that's the core of carrying, is winning 1v1s. What I would highly suggest you do with Roomba is actually not using it right off the bat. This is a big problem where players just use it to get a little bit of information, enemies focus it down, shoot it, and nothing happens from it. Now, if the enemy is in a legitimate 1v1, it's just you and one other person, a Roomba can force them to act. Whether they're planning, hiding in a corridor, or anything like that, they have to kill the Roomba or else they will die to it if they have any sort of damage on them, and you could push them at the same time. You basically put them in a nightmare scenario where they have to shoot the bot and shoot you, which is very, very strong, and it's a really good way to win 1v1s, and I don't see it utilized enough because people just throw out the drone really early on to the round. Now, of course, talking about solo carrying, we definitely got to talk about her rocket launcher, which is just insane. I mean, if you're popping off as Raze, you're going to just keep getting these rocket launchers over and over again. Can let you clutch up rounds, and a lot of characters are not going to be able to get this much free value. The fact that Raze Raze has all these powerful abilities, the Roomba, the Blast Packs that let her win 1v1s, the Pain Shells that can let her deal lots of damage to the enemies, make advantage team fights, and her ultimate that literally is free kills. It makes Raze such a good solo carry champion, and if you really want to just have the most amount of impact in your games, you would do very well with picking up Raze. Now moving on to the next character on our list, number 3, best character to hard carry or solo carry, it's Omen. Now Omen is the play-making master. His new blind is really powerful. His paranoia, you can blind enemies and push them in an incredibly difficult way to outplay. On top of this, his teleporter can set up for some interesting interactions where he takes a high ground or potentially he teleports between LOS. You can set up all kinds of crazy flank plays and all sorts of things with your teleport, and that's one of the X factors on Omen that really make him over the top with solo carry. Now, a really cool aspect of his ultimate is it actually lets him do all kinds of crazy things. I don't see it enough, but you can actually use your ultimate to take a spike to the other side and plant it, put the pressure on the enemy to potentially actually come in and shut you down. And I've even seen it to where the enemy had a huge number advantage on a single Omen, but the Omen systematically baited enemies to come chase him. But then when they did, he actually used his ultimate to teleport back to the spike and defuse it when he was on defense, which is an incredible play. But I definitely think that if enemies slip up, you can actually get so much value out of this ultimate. At the very least, you could just use it and actually not really go anywhere at all. Just make the enemies think you're somewhere, and then you can just surprise them, make them waste time as your teammates are pushing in. Now, before we move on about Omen, specifically about Paranoia, just make sure that you don't throw it out and peek instantly. There is a travel time, and I would highly suggest that you either, 1, wide peek and angle after you hit someone with Paranoia so that the spray, the lineup headshot spray won't kill you, or 2, wait out the initial spray, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen Omens just throw a Paranoia. I've even been hit by a Paranoia, but I just spray head level and I actually killed the Omen when I didn't see him at all, and I know that that's very frustrating. So it's something that you have to think about, and it's not luck, it's not just randomness, it's just crosshair placement. But if an enemy just wastes all of his ammo, or if you swing wide, it's a lot harder for him to punish you post Paranoia. Now moving on to the second best character at solo carrying, in my opinion, it's actually Phoenix. Now you might be asking right off the bat, okay, why Phoenix and not Breach? Breach is a better initiator. Sure, he has way more abilities that lets him take space. The thing about Breach is he's far better in a team setting with allies that will follow him up. Phoenix has a lot of specific characteristics that let him really make plays by himself. For one, Phoenix can self-heal, which is an insanely powerful ability. It allows him to take flanks. He can potentially win a close duel, heal himself up, and go on to another duel with more health than a Breach would. He has an ultimate that basically allows you to clutch up twice and gives you sustain with that ability to heal yourself up to 100 HP. And then of course, flashes to boot. You need to make sure that you get value out of every single ability, and you don't want to waste flashes if you don't need to. If you could flush out an enemy with hot hands in Cubby, for example, you definitely want to do that and wait for them to rush out instead of just wasting flashes blind. This is the #1 mistake I see with Initiator characters, is that they just flash around corners that they have no confirmation or not even a strong indication that enemies are going to be behind. Often you could jiggle peek corners for information and then engage with the flash after confirmation, but if you just use 2 flashes around 2 corners, you have no idea if enemies are even there. Then when you have to go on a flank or if you have to retake, you're not going to have any of these abilities, which is one of the best ways that you can actually engage a duel. So it's really important that you try to get this information first, or at least you get a strong indicator, something like gunfire or allies calling it to you, before you invest flashes around a blind corner. Now lastly, we need to talk about the #1 character in the entire game to solo carry, and you probably guessed it at this point, it's Reyna. Now Reyna is just the solo carry god. She can actually just heal up and take a full fight 1v1s over and over again. This means that she's never at a true disadvantage where she's at a lower health total than the enemy, and she can just kill one person, heal up, kill one person, heal up. And that's what makes her so good at not only clutching up fights, but retaking points. The fact that she can go intangible or even invisible when she's ultimating makes her impossible to swing, and both those things combined mean that she is an absolute nightmare to deal with. If the player that's playing her is better than everyone in the lobby, he can just hard carry the game. Now you do need to understand how to utilize her fade, especially when compared to her heal, and how to choose which one you're going to use. When you're not in ultimate, you should almost never be fading in aggressively, because that will usually just get you killed because enemies can still see you, and you're not going to be at max HP because you didn't choose health. Instead, you should be using it to get out of LOS of the enemy and simply reloading and regrouping. Now, if you killed one enemy and no other enemies in your current LOS, right, but you took some damage, typically the better play is actually the heal. Now, yes, the heal is going to show the enemy your exact location, but the second you grab the heal, you should be predicting that and be ready for an enemy to swing you. The thing is, if you choose to relocate in anticipation for an enemy swinging you, but you took, like, let's say 70 or 80 damage, sure, you're going to be able to relocate, but you're not going to be able to get back to full health, and you never will be unless, of course, you get healed by a sage or you kill someone else, which is going to be a lot harder because you're not at full health. So a general rule of thumb is actually, unless you're going to be under immediate threat, it is better to take the heal and then be prepared to get swung on, but you do have an advantage in that regard because you're going to be ready and waiting, and of course, you're going to be getting that health regen. Now, of course, we got to talk about Leer, which is the best way to get kills and actually stop enemies from swinging you. A cool thing that you could do is in that exact scenario, you can actually back up because you need to have a certain amount of distance between you and your enemy. If the enemy is too close to you into your Leer, they can still see you. So you need to distance yourself, you need to back up, and you need to throw out Leer. So imagine this scenario. You kill an enemy, you know that there's another enemy nearby, but they're not yet in your LOS. You know they're going to swing you. You grab the health orb, you back up, and you throw your Leer at the same time. Then you trade out for the enemy. That is a really strong combination of things that you can do to potentially heal up, kill enemies, and set up unfair advantages. Now, just like with the Phoenix Flash example, keep in mind that Leer is very, very strong, but I see far too often players just blind throw it around corners. Like, if you're just gonna blind throw it around two corners and waste it, how are you gonna retake a site with one of the best characters in the game? If you don't have a very strong indication, I know I already harped on this, but I have to harp on it again, you do not want to be wasting these abilities. It's far better to get confirmation first before you invest these abilities, because retaking later on and saving your ability and making sure that you don't just waste these abilities early on can be the way that you really utilize your powerful kit on the hero, and it can be the only way that you hard carry your bad teammates. Speaking of tagging in your teammates, I need you to call your buddy. I need you to call him over to your house. He can get on your computer and smash that subscribe button. And if you have any other characters that you think are the best characters to solo carry, definitely let us know in the comments down below and explain why. Do you think it's Jett? I think Jett's pretty good. Or do you think it's Viper? Do you think it's Sova? Definitely let me know your take in the comments down below. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,